A second helpful way to look at how you price your influencers is to think about what is the value to you as a brand. So a benchmark of what the influencer wants to be paid is helpful to understand the averages. But as a brand, you want to also consider the value to you and start looking at what that looks like. So this also gives you another formula that will allow you to start thinking about the value of an influencer to your business. So this influencer pricing formula from InfluencerDB starts with what is the media value of a post? So media value is essentially just the value of a post about your business being in front of people. And this would be in dollars. So typically your dollar media value is what you may pay to advertise on that channel. So if I think about on Facebook, maybe I pay $5 per 1,000 people that I want to reach in my target group when I run an ad. So if I'm looking at somebody who's likely to reach 5,000 people, then my media value would be $25, which is the $5 per 1,000 media value I would pay for Facebook anyways, times the 5,000 people that I anticipate this influencer would reach. The second thing is the audience quality. Now, this may be a little bit subjective, or you can create some objective things that you look for here. But the audience quality is essentially how high quality is this audience to your business. So from an audience quality standpoint, you may look at things like how engaged they are, how they're participating with the content. Is it an account that seems to post stuff and nobody responds, or is it an active and engaged account? And you would choose a percentage number for this. So the audience quality would be a percentage number. The next thing to look at is the target group accuracy. Here's where you want to say, okay, if I know I want to reach people like this, what percent of this person's followers are really like that? So let's say I'm working with a fitness influencer and I want to hire her to promote my women's yoga pants. Well, my target audience is women between 20 and let's say 35. So what I would want to do is look at the accuracy of her demographics relative to mine. So I may find right off the bat, 50% of her followers are men. And then within the women, maybe 25% meet that demographic. So that would say that 25% of the total audience is within my target group. So your target group accuracy is the percentage of the audience that's within the group that you want to reach. The next thing is brand fit, and this can be on a scale from 0.5 to 1.5. And this is basically a multiplier to give more credit for somebody who's a good fit for your brand and less credit to somebody who's not a great fit for your brand. And we saw this when we also looked at validating influencers against the 4 R's. So brand fit is basically whether or not the person seems to be right for your brand. And this is probably a little more subjective, but it could be a variety of factors based on what's important and meaningful to you. And then finally, we add the value of the content. So in any influencer program, a good contract will stipulate that the brand has the rights to use the content afterwards. As a brand, it can cost hundreds or thousands of dollars to come up with good content to promote your products. So don't forget to give credit to the influencer who's spending their time and creative energy and money potentially creating the content for you. When we looked at some different influencer campaigns, we saw Sperry, for example, which paid micro influencers on Instagram in order to be able to not only have them post great lifestyle photos, but Sperry also reused those photos on their own account. That saves them money from what they would have paid a media agency or a creative agency to create that content. So it's important to add that back into the mix. This could be anywhere from $50 to $1,000, potentially more, depending on what you currently pay for content and the type of content. For example, a great YouTube video could actually have a content value of $5, $10, $15, $20, $30,000, depending on what you normally pay for video content. A single image on Instagram might be closer to $50 or $100. The important thing here is that you're calculating the value of that creative content as well. So here's an example. The thing that's important to think about with this influencer pricing math is, first of all, this is the value to you as a business. So this is not calculating what somebody else would expect to be paid. This is a way for you to internally calculate the value that you're getting from this. So this is an internal calculation to help you validate and justify the payment you're making to your influencers. The thing to keep in mind, though, about this payment structure is that it's going to end up that each influencer is valued differently for different brands. So if I'm looking at an influencer and I'm evaluating them to sell women's yoga pants, I'm going to come up with a different score for that influencer than if I'm evaluating that same person to sell a new fitness gadget, for example. So keep in mind that this isn't a single static number that you'll calculate for each influencer that you could use across brands. You need to calculate it for each brand because each brand has their own unique characteristics. So how would we calculate it? Here's an example for you. This is a influencer on Instagram, Caro. And if Tommy Hilfiger wanted to partner with her, so maybe Tommy Hilfiger's looking at her and saying, okay, let me think about partnering with her. So the first thing they would say is, what is the media value per post? So let's say she reaches 500,000 people. They would normally pay almost $6,000 to reach that many people on Instagram. So just the one-for-one exchange of media value is almost $6,000. Getting their brand in front of people gives them that $6,000 benefit. The next thing to look at is the audience quality. And this is a percentage score that you'll allocate based on the quality you perceive of the audience. And this can be based on things like engagement rate and whether or not the content seems to get likes and comments, etc. So what is the quality of the audience? The next thing is target group accuracy. So if I'm Tommy Hilfiger and I'm targeting women's clothes, I want to make sure I'm mostly reaching women. In this case, 89% of her followers are female. So perfect. Next thing is brand fit. If I'm Tommy Hilfiger, I probably don't want an influencer who's a little too racy or posting too many photos that are sexy, because Tommy Hilfiger's brand is a little bit more on the classy side. Maybe this is wrong and it's just my opinion. So in this case, if you look at this influencer, she looks like a Tommy Hilfiger model already. So this is a really strong brand fit. So I'm going to score this 1.5 on my 0.5 to 1.5 scale. And then finally, the content value. What would it cost me to create a photo like this? In this case, we'll say $300. So that gives me a final total price when I do the math of $6,680. That does not mean I'm going to go and offer her $6,680 in order to post for me, but this gives me the internal value. When I'm looking at what I would offer her to post, I'm going to go back to those benchmarks and use those as a starting point to move forward. Let's look at another influencer. So if I'm Tommy Hilfiger and I'm looking at Deborah TMZ, again, the media value of the post here is pretty similar. So we saw the media value here was 5,600. Here the media value is 5,000. So they both have pretty similar follow sizes. The next one is the audience quality. We see her quality is a little bit lower because maybe her audience is generally not so engaged and participative. The target group accuracy is really low. So she actually is mostly followed by men. So even though she has a big following, a lot of the followers are men. So that makes her a little less appealing to me. From a brand fit standpoint, I'm going to give her a 0.75, so below average in terms of brand fit, because a lot of her photos are not really fully aligned with our brand, and she tends to be a little more racy than the way we typically would represent our brand. So for this influencer, her final value is going to be $552. So you can see here right away, two influencers with similar follower sizes have very different brand values to me by looking at all of the things that I care about. Now, if I were to take these two influencers and do the same math for a different brand, I could come up with totally different numbers. Let's say I was to do the same math for Victoria's Secret, for example. I may find that the brand fit of Deborah is actually 1.5 for Victoria's Secret, and the audience quality is higher, and the target group accuracy potentially could be higher. So depending on the brand, you'll find different results from this. The key takeaways as you start thinking about how you value to you, the followers, is that the value can be quite different even with the same number of followers. So don't just use followers to decide what something is worth to you and what you're going to pay someone. Each brand will have a different calculation based on what matters to them and how the influencer fits within their brand messaging. Different industries also have different expectations. So keep in mind that, for example, in fashion, there's a lot of preset expectations that influencers have in terms of payment versus in a lot of B2B categories, influencers are less likely to be approached by brands. So they may be more flexible and open to working with you as well. It's important to know the expectations within your industry and to also have a two-way dialogue with your influencers to understand their expectations up front. It's also important to keep in mind that the ability of the influencer to create high quality content that integrates your brand may vary. Here's what I mean by this. Let's say we go back to the two examples that we were looking at of Deborah and Cara. And let's say instead of a fashion brand, it was a health brand. Let's say Special K wanted to engage them as influencers. Well, one of the things that I would notice right away is, they don't typically show food products, especially a breakfast cereal, in their posts. So what I'd want to do is look at their posts over time and see if they have experience in being able to integrate products in a natural and authentic way, or if that's something that I'll maybe have to provide direction and coaching with them on. At Bootcamp Digital, we've done a lot of workshops with brand influencers because one of the challenges the brands have is they say, look, we have these influencers, they love our products, but when they post about our products, either it feels like an ad or they don't really integrate the brand well. And so creativity and coming up with ideas is really a part of the key to making sure that the influencer can deliver what you want. So it can also be helpful to look at their experience within your product category. And this shouldn't be a deal breaker, but it's something to consider when you're looking at the value of this particular influencer to you. So as you look to price your influencers, keep in mind the first video on pricing focused on the industry averages and what an influencer would expect to be paid. This video focuses on how you calculate the internal value to you of paying your influencer. It's helpful to think of both of these together in terms of what you ultimately pay your influencers. So that way you know that one, the influencer is being compensated in a way that's similar to their expectations, and two, you're deriving the brand value that you need to make sure that this is a good value proposition for your business.